Russia needs to be isolated from every single international platform. This is the sanction, this is the punishment for waging an aggressive war. It means a lot to the people of Ukraine. Seeing the landmarks in all the different cities across the globe light up in the Ukrainian flag, seeing the rallies, hearing the words of support from world leaders, from ministers of defense, of foreign affairs, hearing their pledges, that's all that is really appreciated here in Ukraine, and that gives us the energy to go on, and that gives us hope that the world is really united for us and around us, and there's going to be a mobilization, a defense and security mobilization for Ukraine to be able to really end this aggressive war of Russia.
Now, we've heard that, that President Biden wants to put more sanctions in place. The Global Financial Crime Watchdog Action Force has suspended Russia's membership. I mean, how much more important are more sanctions in your point of view?
Russia needs to be isolated from every single international platform. This is the sanction, this is the punishment for waging an aggressive war and for completely disregarding for any kind of and all rules of international coexistence of states, peaceful coexistence of states. And Russia has this disregard. Every single rule in any rule book, name it, the UN Charter, the international humanitarian law rules. Russia just opens it up and breaks every single rule in the rule book. How do you deal with such a country? It's definitely not about partnership. So I think that until Russia goes back to respecting international rules of coexistence, it needs to be isolated from these platforms. And just like North Korea, it needs to be sent into full isolation.
And we've been speaking to a lot of military experts from the United Kingdom Parliament. We spoke with John Bolton earlier in the programme, and they were saying that they're actually very keen for NATO to step up and actually do more and to not be cowed by President Putin. I mean, what more do you want to see from NATO? Do you agree with them? Do you think NATO has to get much more involved?
The ideal picture for Ukrainians is, of course, NATO membership. At this point in time, the latest surveys show that 87% of Ukrainians support NATO membership and for Ukraine. And also, the ideal picture for Ukraine would be to have NATO troops here on the ground fighting off the Russians, and actually to have them here on the ground prior to 24th February 2022 would have helped the situation, in my opinion, and would have really prevented the many casualties and destruction in Ukraine. But that, of course, didn't happen. We are where we are, and we have to make best with the situation. So we need the ammunitions, we need the weapons, we need the fighter jets here on the ground in Ukraine. We need the proper training for the Ukrainian troops so that we, by our own human resources, can keep fighting off the Russians and can finally bring an end to this aggression. Russia started this war, but Ukraine will end it.
And what does ending it look like for you, Lesia? What does that mean?
The occupation of the whole of the territory of Ukraine, bringing back Ukrainian territorial integrity, the whole of the territory of Ukraine, meaning with the Crimea. I know there's a certain reluctance to discuss what happens with Crimea, but Crimea is Ukrainian territory. Russia acknowledged it as Ukrainian territory back in 1991 when the Soviet Union was dissolved and free states, free independent states emerged, and Ukraine included. So we must go back to those borders. That annexation of Crimea started this whole war back in 2014. So this war will end only with the reintegration of Crimea into Ukraine. Mm-hmm. There's no other way about it. There must be a firm pushback on Russia's autocratic ambitions of rebuilding a Russian empire. Without it, there will be no security for Ukraine. There will be no security for Europe and no security for the world. But pushing back the Russians, this is step one. Second step, there must be a responsibility, there must be justice, there must be an international tribunal on the Russian aggression against Ukraine, there must be ICC proceedings on the human rights abuses and on the war crimes and crimes against humanity committed by Russia. And there must be guarantees from Russia of non-repetition. And these guarantees can only happen if there's a regime change in Russia. And this is another debate which must be opened up and must be discussed widely.
And Lesia, a final question, just in the sort of 30 seconds we have left. How have you managed to just stay so strong and so resilient? You've come on my programme a lot. How has the last 12 months sort of changed you as a person over the last 12 months?
It's been tough. It's been one of the hardest years, but it's also been a very giving year where there was a lot of self-discovery and there was a lot of discovery on the level of the nation. The kind of resilience and the force that we have, the drive to bring back Ukraine and to live in an independent, free Ukraine as an independent and free people, I think that's what drives us.